Big thanks go out to Tywa for supporting today's video via Patreon. Azlask versus Atlapalani, Sir Comrade, and Amalia. We've got, some cheap creatures. There's no ramp, but we can Null Drifter to draw some cards, so I'll try this. Don't have any means of making colourless either, actually. Alright, and another big creature. A World Breaker this time, so we can start off with Mana Confluence will be fine, I think. Need the Mana Confluence in play in order to switch the Reflecting Pool on. Oh, noteworthy, there is an Urborg in play as well, which means we don't have to put life into the Mana Confluence for the rest of the game. Arcane Signet for Sir Comrade. Noteworthy, there is a Boseiju here as well, so we can expect instants and sorceries to be uncounterable. Don't think we've got any counter magic in this deck though. Alright, well, there's our source of colourless mana. We can play an Eldrazi here. Probably a good idea to go for It That Heralds the End, because that is going to be a form of ramp for us. And now seeing an Arcane Signet over here as well, straight into a Cleric class. Ravenous Chupacabra came down and handed us some Eldrazi hate, which we are typically going to see. Chromatic Lantern for the Naya player. So do we go for our commander now? I suppose if our opponents have more removal, we'll force them to use it. Argument for us waiting until we've got Spawn in play, but we don't really have a means of getting those into play at the moment anyway. It would have been nice to be able to go Emrakul's Messenger and then maybe evoke this. Anyway, drew into Brood Butcher previously, so more means of getting Scions into play. Talisman of Hierarchy for the Orzhov player, followed by an Auriok Champion, so our opponent's gone for Soul Sisters seemingly, which will do very well against us. So Comrade the Grim, and of course the Auriok Champion is going to gain our opponent 2 life, thanks to the Cleric class, so going north of his starting life total. Rhythm of the Wild, going to make things uncounterable and likely give haste. Okay, so we actually get to untap with Azlask. I don't think it'll do us much good, but we can, we are missing the It That Heralds the End here. Can drop a land at least. Let's go for the Emrakul's Messenger and hope that we don't see a board wipe. Amalia hitting play for the first time, so just missing one commander now. And Kambal seeing a lot of play in recent weeks. I think he's finally been discovered. Kambal Profiteering Mayor. Necropotence for the mono black player with 4 cards in hand. And there's a Playcrafter, so seeing more removal from the black deck. So unfortunately, I think we have to give up on our Spawn Generator. We'll at least get an experience counter from the Azlask. And the creatures go down there, so it's a Comrade the Grim. Ends up triggering a bunch of times. And life's been placed into Necropotence, so going to refill his hand up to 7. Blasting Station is often a combo piece, but also a sack outlet with the egg tokens. So Atlapalani just setting up over there. Alright, wouldn't mind seeing a land here as his workshop with no artifacts in play. So maybe we're able to get down the Brood Butcher here then. I think that'll be alright. It's a bit of extra mana for us next turn, hopefully. And Blasting Station untaps whenever any creature enters, so yet another one that's going to be good against us and our spawn tokens. And that's the first token that we've shown to Kambal as well, so getting a copy of that. Noteworthy that Amalia is the thing that was sacrificed to the Playcrafter. I think Italia would have had to discard a Bane of Bala Ged. Now is this Eldrazi Tribal as well? So when their token enters we get the triggers again. And I slowly get whittled down by the Kambal. Knight of the White Orchid, I'm assuming. Players own more lands than our opponents. Yeah, there's only 4 lands over here. Able to shock in a Godless Shrine with the White Orchid. And Amalia back into play again. So already north of 50 life. And sacrifice the Eldrazi Scion, so going to trigger Sir Comrade the Grim. Damage to each of us. And there's Zulaport Cutthroat, more Aristocrat shenanigans. Damage going in towards Atlapalani, just 3 in the red zone. Solemn Simulacrum, going to ramp the black player. And then Braid's Arisen Nightmare, going to sacrifice Solemn Simulacrum most likely this turn. I think our opponent forgot to use Necropotence though, so already missed the triggers. Yeah, it must be a creature. Oh, it's the Playcrafter that's going down. I think we'll allow our opponent to draw and take the life. And the creature's been sacrificed, a Knight of the White Orchid here as well. Triggers the Zulaport Cutthroat and Sir Conrad the Grim. Amalia already up to 5+ counters on it. Yep, and there we go. Was half expecting it, a Blasphemous Act from the Atlapalani. The board does need it in all fairness. But we get some experience counters at least, so not in a particular rush to get down Azlask again, because now that we've got at least some experience counters, we could maybe focus on getting more tokens into play. Anyway, this is pro-red, so didn't get any damage dealt to it from the Blasphemous Act. But we're going to take big hits from Sir Conrad and Zulaport. If we get into a land, we could always throw down the Ugin the Ineffable. So there we are, turn 6, down to half of our life total. Elemental Bond coming into play after that. So not managing to get the commander down yet. He's got himself down to 15 life though. Swords to Plowshares goes on to the Soul Sister. Ironically gains 2 life from that. Okay, we do manage to get into 1/3 of Tron. So yeah, I think we go for a Planeswalker here then. No better time than after a board wipe. And yeah, we could get rid of Rhythm of the Wild. Could get rid of Necropotence. But we can chump block a hasty creature with a 2/2 hopefully. Alright, and clearing a Wastes off the top. This will act as like pseudo card advantage because these creatures will die eventually. So as long as we keep Ugin in play, we can actually afford an 8-drop here. Agreed is a pretty perfect card for the life game player. Is going to cost a decent amount of mana, but can draw 3 cards here. Managed to draw into a land, so paying into the greed again. And then it's a Blind Obedience, so the creature's going to come into play tapped now, which is relevant with Ugin, but also relevant with Rhythm of the Wild. Dreamhound, when it enters the battlefield, mill 3. Enters tapped, of course, whenever a creature dies, or a creature is put into the graveyard from the library, each opponent loses a life, so seeing bin there, a Gary, Iara, and Bolas's Citadel. Setting himself up for mass reanimation, it seems. And there's an Ophiomancer as well, so gonna start going wide on our Ugin, seemingly, and paying into Necropotence this time. So there we see Atlapalani, can't be countered, would potentially have come in with haste, although our opponent couldn't have activated it anyway. So instead comes in with a plus counter thanks to the Riot, and therefore triggers the Elemental Bond. Might get them into another land. And did manage to get into a land, a Crowsome Verge. Alright, see what we draw into here, because if we get a land it'll make a difference. And All Is Dust is very tempting actually. I think we need to slow down the game to the point where an All Is Dust is going to be of some relevance. Especially before we lose the Ugin. So just in case, we'll plus Ugin first. Actually an argument to be made for not doing that because of the Blind Obedience, but hopefully the tap creature doesn't matter. We do get a Rise of the Eldrazi under there. So yeah, go All Is Dust now I think for 5 mana before we lose the commander. So wiping everything out does trigger the Dreadhound again, unfortunately. 4 creatures went down there, so we go down to 12. Impassioned Orator. And a Cliffhaven Vampire, which is a flyer. That's of relevance. So enters, gains our opponent life, and we lose a life. And our opponent's got all the good cards. A Blood Artist, don't think he's missed yet. Very, very bad matchup for us. See a Wayfarer's Bauble for the black player, and he decides to crack that. Maybe has a Cabal Coffers or Cabal Stronghold, so he wants to maximise the lands he's got in play. And another board wipe. Damnation doesn't want to see any of this Soul Sisters, Aristocrat stuff, so we're going to go down to 5. Ugin is going to put those cards into our hands, so we know we've got a land for next turn. If we even get a next turn. Grim Haruspex going to draw our opponent cards whenever their creatures die. Of course it was a Blood Artist, wasn't it, so that's not every opponent that is targeted, so looks like it went at Atlapalani. We remain at 10, and he joins up is a good one, haven't seen much play with that. Deals 5 damage to a creature or a Planeswalker, and goes on to the Haruspex as opposed to the Ugin. So both of us wanting to slow down the other 2 players seemingly. No haste available to our opponent yet, so cracking the Crowsome Verge, 2 cards in hand, and hasn't managed to keep his commander in play unfortunately, which is pretty commonplace in today's format of EDH. Okay, that is a Deep Fathom Skulker. Will cost 3 mana. our commander will cost 3 mana. We want to make a land, so maybe it's a 3-drop and a 4-drop. Again, while we've got the commander in play, maybe we just want to get creatures into play here, because we can always drop this after the fact and start swinging. So let's plus on the Ugin. That is a Void Rend we will get into hand. Our mana's still a bit clunky, so we could cast it, but we'd have to take pain to the mana confluence, I think. Play ourselves the Brood Monitor, and when that enters, of course, we get the 3 colourless creatures, and we might as well get down our commander here also once the blasting station is done triggering. So Ugin effectively paying for our command attacks here. And we've got 4 experience counters. We can add even more, but Wooburg on this equals +4/+4 to our army. And thanks to the ability clause on this, we can afford Wooburg at the moment, but again we'd have to take pain to the mana confluence. So the Orzhov player is in top deck mode. We'll see what he gets into. That is a Pious Evangel, and when it's transformed, whenever this or another creature dies, target opponent is drained for 1. I think he's 1 mana shy of getting his commander down again there. Okay, a Sol Ring for the black player, 3 cards in hand. And out comes Sir Conrad the Grim again, so it could be that we go down to that. Might have to be Rise of the Eldrazi next turn just to destroy it, but Atla Palani has a vested interest in getting rid of it as well. So there might be removal over there. Phyrexian Altar, a sack outlet that we don't particularly want to see either. And then each player mills a card, so let's see how many creatures are hit here. A land, Midnight Reaper, and an Arcane Signet. Dare say Atla Palani wanted to see something different than an Arcane Signet, so might have actually done him a favour, but we do go down to 9 thanks to seeing the Reaper. Might be that we can actually go wide on Sir Conrad next turn, and if we end up losing the game that's fine, but I would like to activate the Azlask at least once. Like I've said in a lot of the games since Modern Horizons. Don't mind losing, but I would like to do the thing once or twice. So down comes Atla Palani again, and it will trigger twice, but does not have haste at the moment. Alright, so I'd be tempted to go for the Rise of the Eldrazi just to take another turn, and we could blow up Atla Palani with that. But we'd have to sacrifice Spawn, and yeah, the Sir Conrad the Grim is still in play. See what we draw into here, just in case it makes a difference. Eye of Ugin is a good land, so our Eldrazi are going to cost 4 less now. This isn't a tribal sorcery for whatever reason, so won't reduce the cost of that. So drop Eye of Ugin. We need 5 mana to activate the ability, and then this will be 2 mana. So it's probably a good idea to get it into play. Maybe we could minus down onto Atla Palani and then swing in at Sir Conrad, go wide on that. Although, can we afford the Deep Fathom Skulker, because we're running low on Wooburg colours? Yeah, we actually can't afford that, annoyingly, because we haven't gotten into enough of our coloured sources. I think we still have to get rid of Sir Conrad, though. So say they block this, we can go wide with everything else, although, yeah, we're best turning in sideways with everything. Yeah, so let's activate the commander. And like I said, we will have to take pain to the mana confluence, but that's why it's in here. Alright, so our Spawn get +4/+4 and Annihilator along with Indestructible. Plus on the Ugin now, so that just in case there's a spite play destroying that. Oh, actually I was going to minus down on that, wasn't I? Duh. So we might give Atla Palani a go next turn, and yeah, that might not be good. Underneath that is, ironically, a blue source. Could have done with that this turn. But we'll go down the middle and just do a bit of overkill here. So Annihilator 1 triggers 3 times because we plussed on the Azlask. Could be a darkness here, I suppose, but mono black players don't tend to run darkness. And doesn't seem as though our opponent's got anything, so I think we'll get him here. So Conrad, a very scary commander, especially with Eldrazi in play, and at least this player's in top deck mode, so yeah, it's just the tick up on Ugin where I made a mistake there, so giving Atla Palani a chance to do something, but at least got rid of that guy. We can actually afford the World Breaker, so we can get rid of the Blasting Station, might be a good idea. I think that'll be the play here. Still got the Yavimaya in play, so we can make green mana, and our Eldrazi costs 2 less thanks to Ugin, and the Eye of Ugin of course. So remove the Blasting Station, and hopefully rectify my mistake of leaving the commander in play. We'll still get egg tokens, which they shouldn't have been allowed to do, but we get another blocker as well. But you can see that we don't need, I mean, there's been a lot of aristocrat effects here, but we don't need too many experience counters with Azlask. Get this and a few creatures into play and then see a board wipe, and it does trigger off itself and obviously the other creatures that die. So if Azlask sees one board wipe or at least some sacrifices for mana on these, then it does start to become a threat in the late game. It's just, do you make it to the late game is the question. Amalia back into play again. Noteworthy that if we want to target that, we're going to have to pay 3 life for the ward. Gain a life from the Pious Evangel. And they can afford the sacrifice clause on this, so could get rid of any other permanent in order to turn it into an aristocrat. Luckily doesn't trigger on our Eldrazi Scions. Well, got into another sack outlet anyway for Phyrexian Altar. So this is why we should have got rid of the Atlapalani. I'm sure there's nothing but big scary creatures in the deck, but Atlapalani does deserve to actually play the game out because he stuck it around even though he's had his back up against the wall like we have. So my mistake keeps things a bit more interesting at least. Sacrifices an egg to get 2 creatures. Here's a Talpa and a Zapandrel. No means of haste, so it might just have to be go wide on this player next turn as well. Zapandrel triggering twice as well, doubling up the power and toughness twice and making those a 1624 and a 1632, so it's a big enough threat where we have to get rid of that player, I think. How many blockers do we want to leave them with is the question. Emrakul's Hatcher is only going to cost a single red mana. I think now is the time to get down the Deep Fathom Skulker so that we can start drawing cards. Although we're still shy on coloured mana, aren't we? Yeah, I think we kind of have to just do the Wooburg thing again, unfortunately. So buff with Azlask again. Zapandrel will trigger, but we're not particularly bothered about that. I didn't want to minus down on Ugin on blockers because we assume that we're going to lose stuff here anyway. So if they've got removal in hand, we have to account for that as well. So it's these 3 going into the right, and then maybe try to get some card advantage. So they block the 6/6s and take 15. So if there's some removal, we've hopefully accounted for that. They'd need 2 pieces of removal in hand, plus they have to deal with the Annihilator here, so Annihilator 3 effectively. Could have been more aggressive and gone in at the left as well, but yeah, I just wanted to make sure that we definitely deal with that player. So then I think we can finally get down this Null Drifter. That will cost us 3 mana. See if we can get into a land. Plus it is a flying blocker as well, so draw 2 cards when we cast it. And there we see some more colours, which is good. Does this enter tapped? I don't think it does. So we could actually get down the Emrakul's Hatcher as well. Name Eldrazi. And we are potentially playing into a board wipe here, but yeah. Maybe we have enough there. See if we can minus down onto the Pious Evangel. Luckily Ugin's been able to stick around for a long time. Not pointing the 5 damage over here was interesting previously, but I'm glad that he didn't because it could make all the difference. Yeah, I think we'll save the Emrakul's Hatcher so that we can get down some Eldrazi Spawn afterwards as well. And there's nothing to stop us dropping this for a couple of mana before we swing in next turn. 2 cards in our opponent's hand now, because he didn't play his card previously. I don't particularly like the branded Magic the Gathering sets, but I did see a new equipment in the Assassin's Creed. Yeah, the Assassin's Creed set that gives plus 10 power to commanders. I'm just wondering if that would be a good fit in Amalia, wouldn't it? That's a shame. Our opponent didn't get into anything, so I decided to scoop it up. We're not allowed to see what we were drawing into, but it was basically throw down Deep Fathom Skulker next turn, hit with all these, and would have drawn a card for each one of them, which does include the tokens as it happens, so particularly good in an Eldrazi Scion / Spawn deck. But yeah, wasn't looking too promising for us for a while there, but a few board wipes slowed the game down enough. Our 2 black opponents decided to go fast and lose all the cards that were in their hand, and teetering at a low life total, we managed to push the advantage. So yeah, big thank you for watching this Azlask game. The deck list is in the description as ever, along with a link to Patreon. Big thank you to the patrons for their support of the channel. I'm tribalkai, Thank you for watching.
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 Oh yeah, rock and roll.
Nice Easter egg for the people that stick around till the end.